There's just one more part of the kit I haven't taken apart. This thing. What is it? Hey there, fellow maker, welcome to the shop. Bill here, and it's no secret that I like Fallout. We here like Fallout. A while back, I got the Pip Boy from Fallout 4 and did a really fun repaint on that. When they said they were releasing another one for the new Fallout game, I had to get it. I pre-ordered it immediately, and I am overjoyed because this is a kit. It's in pieces, and I have to build it. And that means I can probably put more stuff into it. So I'm gonna tear into this thing, unbox it, see what we have to work with, then come up with a game plan so I can add some more features. So here it is. The Wand Company made this, and I'm excited because they make cool stuff. This is the actual box. Oh, ooh. I love the branding that goes into everything they make for Fallout stuff. Yay. Well, here's the construction manual. We can just throw that right out. That's not true, I'm gonna need that. And as cute as these Vault-Tec screwdrivers are, I'm probably gonna go get some real ones. But I'm keeping these, yes. Definitely gonna keep this box, but I'm gonna set it aside for now. If this thing goes together with screws, I'm gonna be a pretty happy prop maker. Ooh. This part in particular I'm very interested in. I have something that I bought a long time ago that I wanted to use in my old one that I might use in this one. This is it. There are no batteries in this yet. Let me fill it up and I'll show you what this does. There are some batteries in there. Oh, it makes a loud noise. There we go. That's blinking and that's full. So this is an electroluminescent panel, EL panel.
So loud.
It's so loud, that's the noise that they make. I'm hoping that this fits in there, or at least is close enough to light it up. And I'm also hoping there's a place I can stuff this so that we don't have to listen to that all the time, so at least it'll be covered. Got a couple more things here to dive into, but these are metal. These are cast metal parts. So this is the cuff fabric with elastic, all right. More of the cuff. We could also totally redo this in leather if we wanted to. Although it feels kind of nice. We got all kinds of stuff in here. I hope I didn't lose anything. We've got all our parts laid out here, and it's time to come up with a game plan. So here's the challenge. I'm not sure if I want to repaint this whole thing or not. Obviously, it would be a lot easier to repaint it when it's apart. There's so many different pieces. But I think what I'm going to do is put together this tape so I have an easy win early on, and then I'll make some decisions from there. So we have our screws. And then there's a tape guard, which is right there. Whoop. Like that. The paint on this is actually fine. That's just painted right there. The rest of it's intrinsic. So I could just weather this and it'll be good to go. All right, I'm gonna get a real screwdriver. There we go. There's our tape. The screen is where we have some potential. So I'm gonna take this apart and see what sort of room we have to deal with. Yeah, look at that. So that is the screen, and there's this black plastic part that doesn't wanna come off. Oh, no, there it goes. That's kinda neat. So I can put the screen in and still have room. My EL thing might be able to fit in there. Wow, it's really close. Wait, hold on. All right, let me get my green acetate and cover this and see how it looks. All right, this is just a test. There we go. Look at that. That lights up really cool like. So we just need to put some sort of graphic over that and we're good. I've been pawing over all this stuff. It's clear to me this is gonna take me a few days to put together. So I just wanna tackle a little part of it right now. There's this really cool grill, and this part is meant to go behind it, and it's meant to have these tubes on it so that it looks like there's lights in there. I wanna put real lights in it. So I found these that I bought forever ago and never used. But they're little tea lights, and they have batteries, and they flicker, and they're orange, which looks really cool. So what I want to try and do is put a pair of them in this part and then run wires off of them so we can power them once we figure out where the batteries are going to go on this thing. Okay, so those LEDs that I liberated are gonna go in here, and I'm just gonna cut those things off and hopefully not ruin it. Let's just double check. That is gonna cover that, so this part forward I can take off. All right. Just need to drill out those holes so we can fit our LEDs in there. Oh, right through. And now hopefully that should fit in there, and then this can go over it. Yes. This is eventually gonna go in there, but to make room for those wires, I need to cut a slot in this guy. And I think we're okay. It looks like this part eventually goes like that. So you're never gonna see that bottom there. I'm gonna cut a slot in that. Slides in, and we're good. Our wires can now come out the bottom. Time to attach these, and I'm just gonna use a little bit of hot glue. There we go. Now we can just wire those together and we should be all set. There. All right, let's see if those work. They do, all right. So basically these are hooked up in parallel. Positive just get connected to the positive, and then that runs to the battery. Same thing with the negative. The original battery pack was 3 tiny coin cell batteries that were 1.5 volts each. We went with this pack here, which is 3 AA batteries, which is also 1.5 each. Same amount of voltage, so that means we're good to go. All right, let's see if this works. These bulbs have to go on, and they are retained by the top of it there. This part here I might paint a little bit, like dry brush, maybe some rub and buff on that. I think would look really cool. I think this goes over it. Let's light it up and see how it looks. And lights, yeah. That looks really legit. Oh my goodness, that looks so cool. Rub and buff. Fresh bottle of rub and buff, which I happen to get everywhere. Anyway, some of it got on my finger, so I can carefully graze the surface here and add a silver shine to the highlights, which looks really great. There we go, a little bit of a shine. Now I can go clean myself up. So this piece was just black, and I wanted to call out all the really cool texture on that, so that's why we hit it with rub and buff, and now we put it in there, and it looks a little bit more interesting in the background, especially when we put this top on, and it's got that nice layered effect. That does help quite a bit. You can actually see that texture through there. I like that, I'm glad I did that. With that light all sorted, I've gone and knolled everything out, and I think I want to do some painting. Actually, I know I want to do some painting. I already got my paint out. The first thing I want to do, all of the kind of olive drab looking parts here, I want to paint my own version of that color. I would love for it to be a little bit metallic. I just don't want this to look like plastic the way it is by itself. So I mixed up some paint. Here's the paint I came up with. The final result looks like this, which is painted directly on top of the bare plastic, which looks like that. So this is just a little bit more green, and it's got a tiny bit of a metallic sparkle in there. And that comes from this bronze, and to get my green, I used a yellow and this metallic blue, and then a little bit of tan. So that's all mixed up in my airbrush. I'm gonna paint this directly onto the bare plastic without priming or sanding or anything. I think if this were to wear away down to this plastic, it would actually just kind of look cool. So. No priming, I'm just gonna clean this up with a little bit of alcohol so that the surface is nice and clean, and then I'll get to airbrushing. Oh, I don't wanna get any on that. Gonna mask that off. Before I paint this, I do want to take this text off here. First though, let's take a photo so I know how to reproduce that. Actually, I have a ruler so I can use that for scale, and I'm just going to zap a photo with my phone. There we go. I can recreate that later to make a stencil. And now I'm going to use my acetone to hopefully wipe the yellow text off. Oh yeah, that's taking it right off. It's actually, I think, melting the plastic. The text actually didn't really quite come all the way off there. It's a little bit raised up. This is probably ABS plastic, so the acetone is probably chewing into that. Maybe instead of the acetone, I'll just sand this off. Just got a 400 grit sandpaper here that seems to be doing the trick. So I just sanded this down to like 1200 grit and then hit it with a little bit of plastic polish, and now it should be ready for paint. These little parts here are plastic, but they're, I'm guessing, meant to look like metal. Some of the parts are actually metal, and I do kind of like the finish on here, so I'm gonna leave these as is, but these little parts I'm gonna paint more metallic. For that, I'm gonna use this Molotow Chrome, Molotow? I don't know. M-O-L-O-T-O-W. Let's give it a go. Boop, 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 boop. I think that's it. Cool. Those are really shiny. For these red guys, I have this clear red. I want to try that with a little bit of the, maybe try and mix this chrome with it. Maybe it's crazy, maybe it's not. We'll see what happens. This is a very dark, translucent red. Boop. Ooh, that looks kind of cool. All right, let's spray it and see what it looks like. I think it looks pretty good. Another red button there. The black I'm gonna leave as is, but I wanna paint that. So I've got a piece of masking tape here. I'm just gonna fold it in half and cut half a circle in it. Hopefully that's about the right size. Now when I unfold that, I have a circle that can kind of fit around my button. Now I can airbrush that. So these are my olive drab parts. These parts here came with this sort of greenish metallic finish on there, and I like it, but I think that I want something that's got a little more contrast than the color I have down here. So I think I'm gonna actually repaint all these parts like a gunmetal. And I know that that'll change up the sort of color scheme of this whole thing a little bit, but I'm okay with that. I'm really making this my own. These little pieces are held on just with a little bit of double stick tape. I can just tape it down to the wood and then peel off the backing and then stick my piece down. These little pieces would normally just want to fly away from the air. I'll show you. If I just had that sitting there and I tried to paint it. Woo! Oh, you stay there, little buddy. So yeah, double stick tape is awesome. Link down below. Hey, while I'm working on that painting, I'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons over on patreon.com/punishedprops. Because of your support, we're able to do these really fun projects in our fantastic shop space. We couldn't do it without you. If you'd like to jump in on the fun, you can head on over to patreon.com/punishedprops. Consider tossing us a buck and getting access to behind the scenes vlogs every week, early access on all of our build videos, plus extra credit videos for all of our build videos. Thank you so much for the support. Let's get back to the build. So this is the window part of the screen, and it came with this like window vinyl decal thing that like sticks to it like that. But I have a better idea. Of course, we're gonna try and make it more fancy. Let's head to the computer. Okay, I'm over at the 3D printer land here. I've got Inkscape open, and this is the graphic that came with the Pip Boy. I just want to make my own. To get a Pip Boy screen that I like, I found just an image on the internet, and I'm going to use that. You use Photoshop or some other editor. I'm using Pixlr. It's a free online one. I want this to be black and white, so we'll adjust it to make it. We can just crank down the saturation. There we go. And then I want it to be have more contrast. So we will go to adjust the brightness and contrast and crank up the contrast. So the whites are lighter and the blacks are darker. And then I'm gonna save that. And then that black and white image will get dropped into Inkscape here so I can size it appropriately like that. And then I can print this out, hopefully, and it'll look great. I'm gonna print that graphic on some transparency film. Now this is meant for a copier. Hopefully it works in our laser printer. Let's give it a try. The sides look the same. Let's chuck that in there and see how it goes. That looks pretty cool. Look at that. All right, let's go see how it looks in our Pip Boy. So here's our EL panel that's gonna go in the screen. Here's what we just printed that's gonna go over it. Let's see how it looks. That's so cool. Look at it. Oh man, that looks great. So this thing is gonna work out. It looks the part for sure. This inverter is a little big, and I found another one on Amazon. It actually came with all this EL wire that I'm not gonna use. I couldn't find this by itself, but this was only 10 bucks, not bad. So we're gonna use this instead. This should be easier to hide somewhere in the Pip Boy somewhere because it takes up far less room. It's also a tiny bit quieter. Give it a go. Nice. Then I guess next we want to fit this inside of our screen thing. There we go. Now this goes here, and this screen needs to go in, actually like that. This is the part that's supposed to go behind it, but I think that's what's supposed to hold it in, but I'm not gonna use this. Oh, I have an idea. I can cut all of this off and use the frame to pin everything in there. I think that's what I'm gonna do. I just need to cut the screen part off of this. I cut this part off, and hopefully this will now still retain all of these parts when I push it all together. There we go. Hey, all right. So now it's being held in there. I want to fit my EL panel under this thing that's holding it, but it's a little long, so I'm gonna cut the EL panel. Everything I've read said it's totally cool and it'll still work so long as the part that you leave is connected to the connector. So let's go for it. Let's see what happens. All right, it still works. So now it should be able to fit in here, and then this can go over it and under that. Oh, it's so, oh, there we go. That is a really tidy solution in there. And it looks amazing. Rave mode. Got my instructions all laid out, and I'm gonna start following them and putting everything together until we get to the point that we want to add another one of our mods. Some stickers go in this panel here. Before I do that, I want to hit this with a little rub and buff to make it look a little more metallic. So I'm just masking everything else off so I can quickly go over that with some rub and buff. Got hands like a surgeon. I've either had too much coffee or not enough. No. Ah. Yeah, there's a texture piece in there, and I want that to have a little bit of rub and buff. So I'm gonna mask it and add that while I go. And just kind of graze the top of that. There we go. It's a nice little bit of extra something. Let's see, this fella goes in there, like so. Yeah, there we go. Well, that looks okay. And then this goes in there. And this is just the wire for my EL panel. I don't know what I'm gonna do with that yet, so I may end up having to take this whole thing apart again, but that's okay. I've been keeping all my parts in these trays here. They're just plastic trays. They're really cheap. I think I got them on Amazon. I got a bunch of them here, you can see. So for small parts that you might lose while you're working, so helpful to be able to split them up into their own trays. Also, I've got my magnet tray. Most of the time I just throw magnetic stuff in there, like screws and bolts and springs. This way though, nothing gets lost. I try not to set stuff down on the table because it'll roll off the table. If I can set it in here or in there, at least I'm limited to having to dig through here and not on the floor. I do like that they have real metal decorative hardware. That's just really nice. Only got one shot at this. Make it count. This is nice, a nice little piece of aluminum on there. That looks really great. Okay, so these are the wires that came with this kit, and I have similar colored wires. They're just a little thicker, so I'm gonna go with those. I just think they're a little more substantial. I know I have a crimping tool somewhere. I did not find my crimping tool, but I found a small pair of vice grips, so there we go. That is on there. So they have different settings for radiation, and I think I'm gonna go with the highest one. My Vault Dweller likes to live life on the ragged edge. So that goes about there. That can go in here. There we go. Oh, that looks nice. Now we can attach all our wires. Yeah. All right, it's time to work on some really tiny parts. There's these little metal rods, and then these look like little pulleys, and then these look like little caps that go on them. There we go, right in. This switch goes in like that. That goes around there, that goes around there. And this goes around this once. It works! Hooray! We are on to the other side of the page. I'm gonna start putting all this together. Now, I will need to figure out like where batteries go. I got the most adorable little Bluetooth speaker. It's so tiny. Ta-da! I have to figure out where this is gonna go in the body of the Pip Boy, and also how I'm gonna power it and all that stuff. So I think I'm gonna put everything kind of mostly together and then start to sort that stuff out. Now eventually these wires need to go in these holes, and since I used thicker wires, they won't fit. But fortunately there's a fix for that. There we go. Come on. Now I think I can push most of that together. That looks pretty okay. There we go. That goes like that, and then this goes like that. There. Then I can close it. Nice. That is quite the addition right there, this whole portion. Okay, this bolt, this short bolt with threads on either end needs to go in there, and I think I have to thread it into the plastic. You know what I'm gonna do to make my life easier? Nice. See, that's a lot nicer. Now, there are big cavities here, which means we will probably try and fit our Bluetooth speaker in there, which is where the actual fake speaker goes, like so. But I think I'm gonna put it all together first and then try and make heads or tails of it. If I have to take it apart to add some parts, that's not a big deal. So let's push forward and put all these pieces together. And then this goes in there. Okay, so that's a problem. My wiring is kind of in the way. Yeah, I can trim a little bit of this out. So this area here is all gonna get removed. Let's see if it'll fit around my wires. Hey, look at that. I guess this fella just slides in there. No, it's just really loose. I wonder if I just spool a bunch of it in there, if it'll stay. There we go. Maybe when I open this, I'll glue it on the other side. So the next step involves the cuff here, and they've included these little snap-in plastic things to retain it. So these just go through these holes, and then you press it in and it snaps into the body. I want to be able to remove this. These snap bits here are intended to be permanent. So instead of using these, I'm going to thread those holes. Got some screws here, and we'll use these instead to screw it in so that I can take this off later. The cuff is okay, but I think at some point in the future, I'd like to replace it with leather, but that would probably be its own video. So for now, I'm just gonna attach this temporarily. I could probably self-thread these. They seem like they're about the right size for an M4 screw, so I'm just gonna self-tap this one. Yeah, that's just fine. Now I should just be able to put that in there and screw it in. I recommend working from the middle out. It's a lot easier to get at the ones in the middle when the outside ones are not screwed in already. So the rest of the cuff, there's a separate part. It looks like it's held on with Chicago screws, which I think is great. These stems here, the socket parts, those go in like that. And the screws, which is great. That's a temporary bond. I could take that apart if I want to. So these screws are tapping into a socket, so they're cutting their own threads. I went and got a bigger screwdriver for some leverage. Could not imagine trying to do this with this little guy here. I imagine if you're putting together one of these kits, you've got your own screwdrivers at home. These two pieces should just snap together. And I should be able to take that off. Nope, there it goes. Working as intended, and then you can change the size and then lock it. So that was the last step of the traditional build. It fits lovely on my arm here. I also learned that this, if you squeeze that and pop it open, that's how you open this, which is a really, really wonderful little mechanism. Take my tape, my hollow tape, pop it in there, backwards, like that. And then this can go like that. Bloop, 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 bloop. Okay, so this is basically the kit. We've made mods along the way. I just have to figure out a couple more things. So I'm gonna take some of this apart. Bluetooth speaker, EL panel, and lights. I have to get power to those, and I have to figure out if I can fit my tiny little Bluetooth speaker in here. The trick is this EL panel and the LEDs we put in there, I want to run them off the same battery. This was the inverter that runs that. It's necessary to run the EL wire. I took that apart, and this is what's left over here of the inverter minus the batteries, and instead I've hooked those up to a smaller battery pack. These are two AAA batteries instead of two AA batteries, same amount of voltage, so we're all good there. I will put a switch on it, but this goes in there, and you can see that lights up our LEDs, and then it goes up to our inverter, and I can push this button and turn that on. This battery pack is powering both that, and I'm really happy. This fella here, you have to push this button to turn it on. So if that loses power, so if I had a switch and I turn that off, right? And then I put it back on, my LEDs come on, but that doesn't come on. I have to push the button. I don't want to have to do that. So I think I'm gonna find a way to push it down permanently in some way. Just soldering, replacing the battery contacts with just some wires here. So to keep these leads from ripping out at any time, I'm just gonna hot glue them down. See if that works for us. The hot glue didn't seem to work. The button really needs to be pressed hard. So instead I'm just bridging the gap between those two leads on that switch on the back side, and hopefully that works. Boop. Now when it gets power, that thing turns on. Great. This is the wires for the EL panel. I need that to go in there, so I'm gonna drill a big old hole. I might have a couple of wires hanging out back here, but I'm okay with that. Yep. Jeez, plastic is so grabby. That's what you get for using twist drills. That's what I get anyway. There we go. All of this stuff will live in there, but now I can hook this up and just stow it all in there like that. And then this just has to go to our battery. These are the wires for the LEDs, and I need to get them kind of near these guys. So I think I'm just gonna drill a hole here and here and just run it across. You'll never see that, so I think it's gonna be okay. Then these guys can get connected, and they will run to the switch and then battery. So this knob is supposed to be installed in there, but instead I'm going to install this button. This is an on-off toggle. This will turn our lights on and off and the screen on and off. It needs to go in there though, and I think it won't fit. I think I need to cut that off. I'm going to try and fit that in there, and then we can wire everything to it. So this step bit is good for cutting holes in really thin material. Like, I should have used that instead of a twist drill on the frame when I was drilling a hole for the EL panel. I'm just going to use it to carefully cut this hole out. See how nice and gentle that was? There we go. Of course, all of that needs to fit in this hole, so I'll drill this out as well. Fantastic. Because of the order all this stuff has to get put together, I'm actually gonna trim this little tab off. This helps hold two of the pieces together, but we don't need it. It's just gonna get in the way. All right, the new way this goes together now, this part just sort of lays on top of that. This goes through, and then when I tighten this, it holds it all together. There we go. Actually, it looks really nice. So this used to be there. We're probably just not going to use that. And we'll just use this. So one of these will get hooked up to this, and then it'll go to the battery. All right, so this container here has plenty of room in it. In fact, it has enough room for a 2 AAA battery holder. So that's where that's gonna live. The only thing is it'll be covered, and I don't wanna have to unscrew this to change the battery. So I think I'm just gonna cut a hole right in this. The cuff will be against that. You'll never see it open. Up there to kind of down there. That'll do. Now it's time to attach this permanently. I think I'm just gonna use hot glue. So I'll sand the back of this so that it's nice and grippy. That feels good. This feels good. This feels right. So those should go through here, and they can join everything else in there. This should be able to close. We can reach our batteries, that's awesome, and now I can screw that back in. Got everything set up temporarily, and I'm gonna see if my power button does everything it's supposed to do. Yeah. Yes. That is exactly what I was hoping would happen. That's fantastic. Awesome, I can solder this, I can button all this up, and then we can move on to the next thing. That's great. All right, one more mod. I have this tiny Bluetooth speaker, and I need to see if I can fit it in there.
Bluetooth device connected.
All right, so this is the tiniest little Bluetooth speaker I could find. I was on Amazon, it was like 14 bucks, and it is like almost the perfect size. It can almost already fit in there all by itself. So it's just connected to my phone. What I want to be able to do is put the speaker there, but also have access to the power button to turn it on and off, and the charging port so I can plug it in and charge it right there. So I need to try and take this apart, which could be tricky because I know this was not designed to come apart. Oh, come on. I'm worried if I just hinge it, if I'll break something, because the wiring in here must be just really short. Yay! There's a tiny little battery in there. So this is what's left of the case, and this is the entire Bluetooth speaker. I was able to get it out carefully. Let's see if it still works.
Bluetooth device connected.
It still works. That's great. This needs to go in there, but I definitely want to cover it because this is meant to go like that. This is meant to go over it, but that's gonna block all the noise. So I wanna put some sort of grate or mesh over this. Okay, that is the button to turn this thing on and off, and I want to be able to turn it on and off using a different button. So I'm just gonna wire this in tandem with that, I guess, but it's really tiny. So I have this really thin wire I'm gonna try and solder down to the board. So these are connected. If I touch them together, that should turn it on, I hope. I don't know. Okay, let's see if this button works. Nope. I made a lot of progress. So these little wires are now connected to bigger wires, which are connected to this switch, and when I hold it for 3 seconds, it turns on. So now I can run this power button anywhere I want in our Pip Boy. Now to charge this fella, it's got this little USB plug, and I could try and cut a hole in the case and have that sticking out, but I think it'd be a lot easier to just plug the charging cable it came with into this and then run this out a hole. This will just be dangling, but we'll hide it behind the cuff, and then you can just plug it in to charge it. Nice. And then everything can get tucked away. I modified the end of my USB cord here so I have a little more room to work with. That's gonna go through this hole. And then hopefully all of this can go in there. And then I just have to hook up this button. I'm thinking I'll drill a hole for this to go in. In fact, I can do that next. And then that can go in this way and screwed on. Although I think I want it to be a little more flush. So this is just held on with this nut. Now we can turn it on and off right there, and the rest of this stuff can go in where it belongs. I'm going to attach this speaker here, and I think a couple dollops of hot glue should do the trick. There. And then hopefully, just press it in place. So this is the cover that came with it, and we're not going to use it because it would block all the sound. But Brittany found these drain covers that we had in the bathroom, and I'm gonna use one of those. We got a little piece of this metal mesh here. I'll cut that to size and hopefully we can make that work. I think I'm ready to put everything together. I just rearranged everything in there so it fits. This little guy here, before I was mentioning it wasn't wanting to stay, so I took it apart and tied a knot in it. And now that I can stuff it in there, we won't have any problems with that coming out. This covers that. Okay, now our mesh is in there and I can go and cover this. Oh, that looks really wonderful. I love it so much. Now that everything is screwed together, let's see if it still works.
Bluetooth device connected.
Yeah, I've got a Bluetooth speaker. Hold on, wait. Play music. All right, all I have left to do now is weather it, put the cuff back on, and I'm calling it good. Whoa, before I can weather it, I have to put the text back on there. So I think I'll make a stencil and just paint some text on there. The Pip in the middle of the A that's just gone. I cut these out on the vinyl cutter. This is teeny tiny, but it handled it like a champ. You can also make your own stencils with masking tape or even with a 3D printer.
Water slide decals, maybe?
You could do water slide decals, that's right. Those things are awesome. Yeah, the parts in the middle are just gone. That's how that is now. So tiny. Okay, I should be able to peel away the transfer tape. There we go. This is why I splurged on 2 different widths of Tamiya tape. Oh, that looks so good. Nice! Ugh, now we can weather it. They call me Pip Boy Man. Pip Man. This is my collection now. All I need now is a Fallout 3 Pip Boy to complete the whole look. This was really ridiculously fun. I love that they went with a kit for this that you have to assemble and build yourselves. Already I've seen other people doing similar mods to theirs. I think I saw our friends Lightning Cosplay put a Bluetooth speaker in their Pip Boy as well, so maybe we'll meet up. We can be Pip Boy buddies. Hey, thanks for joining us on this one. I hope that if you got this kit, you give it a try and mod it a little bit. Maybe it's just a little bit of paint. There's so many options with this, and it was a ton of fun to put together. As always, all the tools and materials that we use for this build can be found down below. If you want to see how we did the Fallout 4 Pip Boy, this guy right here that I made look super post-apocalyptic and rusty and gritty, we've got a video for that. You go check that out. Of course, if you're new, you want to hit that subscribe button. We have new prop and costume making videos coming out every single week. And thank you to our patrons who support us and in return get access to behind the scenes vlogs, extra credit videos for which I will be recording one for this fella right here, and of course early access on all of our videos. Thank you so much. That's all I've got for you today from the shop here. I'm gonna get to work on the next thing, and I hope you join me. I'll see you in the next build. Hey, I bet you think I forgot to show what's in here. Let's take it apart and see. I think it's a toothpick. I don't know why this would come with a toothpick, but it is a white plastic toothpick, and I have no idea what it's for. Huh. If you think you know what this is for, let me know in the comments.